Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to B is for Build. In today's episode, we're working on the GTR. We need to replace the rear subframe. So if you guys remember, when we did some inspection from the crash damage, we found that the upper control arm pickup point on the subframe was bent during the wreck. So I got a new used subframe from a 2016. That way it'll have good bushing life and should have a lot of life left to it. And we're gonna be replacing our subframe. This is gonna be the biggest, most technical job that we do in repairing this build because it's not easy to do. To drop the subframe, you also have to drop the transmission and the differential. They're one unit, it's a transaxle. And that stuff weighs a lot, so it's very dangerous. So this is the hardest job we're gonna do on this build. I'm really excited to do it. I'm hoping to bang it all out in one day. So let's get started. Stay tuned. I'm gonna go through this a little bit more step by step than I normally do because there aren't any good videos that I could find showing how to do this online, but it is a job that people need to do somewhat frequently. So the first thing that I've learned is this is a job much better if you have a lift. We're using a quick jack, which gets our car about 24 inches off the ground, give or take some inches. That's the best I got, so we're probably gonna run into some sticking points there. So just right off the bat, if you got a place with a lift that you can access and you can use for this project, I would do that first. First steps, go ahead and put your parking brake down because you're going to want to be able to rotate those drive shafts down there. And for the same reason, you're going to go ahead and throw the car into neutral and then shut it back down. And I would pop the battery off as well. Next few things are some stuff that we've already had done for us. You're going to want to remove the rear wheels, remove the midsection exhaust. We need to remove a little bit of this under tray down here. That's what we're going to be working on next. And the heat shield from the front of the transmission. We got the trays off. It's a little crowded, but I want to show you everything. So the rear diff is way back here, and then moving forward, you got the rest of the transmission oil pan right here, and then going back to the drive shafts. And so the next process, the next part of the process is to remove the drive shafts from the transmission. We're basically unbolting them. I don't think that this one's going to fall out because it's kind of seated in here, but once we loosen up the transmission, then it will be able to fall out. So this is your front wheel drive shaft right here, rear wheel drive shaft right here. The big carbon fiber one goes to the rear wheels. This can be spun around to get access to all the bolts by moving the front wheels, just spinning the front wheels. This one you can't, so you got to put a giant crescent wrench or a box wrench on the back of here, and then you'll be able to turn that. And make sure to mark, you're gonna see me marking where the drive shaft meets up with the transmission flange. That way we can put them back in the proper spot on the way back in. I heard that that is important, or at least, at the very least, helpful for keeping things all balanced and happy and all that good stuff. Here we go. All right, with both the drive shafts undone, this front one came right off because it doesn't kind of seat into it, but you can see how this one seats. See how it seats in there like that? So that's not gonna come down until we move the transmission away from it. And as you can see that these lines, they're in our way, and they're part of the heat exchanger, which I guess is this guy right here. And I've heard the cleanest way to do this is to unbolt the heat exchanger from the trans, and the fluid will stay stored inside the heat exchanger. I don't know, I've never done this, but it looks like it's 3 or 4 12 mil bolts. So we'll go ahead and pull those off, and hopefully I won't be covered in antifreeze when we're done. Well, that was a bit of a fail. I wasn't planning on changing my trans fluid. My trans fluid looked really good too, but once I loosened it up, I was kind of in a predicament. So anyways, this is the heat exchanger. It's plugged on the backside. You can see right here, I got some plugs on that. And then up here, this is the transmission, and we have 2 plugs right in there. Got really sketchy because I went to set a plug in there and it actually slipped in too easily and almost flew into the transmission, which would have been like trans rebuild time. Anywho, we got that figured out. Got the fluid to stop draining. If I were doing this just to drop the subframe though, if I were doing it again, I would just pull the coolant lines because it's a lot cheaper to get more coolant than it is to get more trans fluid. So now that that's done, what we need to do is we need to remove this cross member right here. This is a trans support cross member, but I've read in this tutorial that the transmission will be okay staying up here without it, but just in case, I'm going to go ahead and put some jacks in some different places to catch the weight if anything does sink down. So there should be 6 nuts and 6 bolts holding this cross member on. And then the unfortunate part as well is there are some spots like over here where the jack is in the way of removing the cross member. So I'll have to work around that a little bit. But that's the next step, is to remove this cross member and just to add in some more safety holding things just in case. Drop the cross member out without too much trouble. The heat exchanger is just hanging out over there. That's in front of the transmission and everything, so we're good there. The transmission did not sink down at all, so must be pretty well held up in here. The next thing we got to do is run around and chase down different cables and things like that. So there's 3 here. There's an ABS one right here, an ABS hose right here, and a grounding cable right here. I'll start with those 3, and then I know there's more, and I'll show you those once we're done. And those are the last few things we have to undo before we can start preparing the suspension to come down as well, and then we drop the whole thing down. Getting close. All right, so I got all these 3 plugs back here, and then the rest of the mess is over here. You got to take these 2 out. There's a bracket that you're going to want to unbolt because it has a grounding cable underneath it. It belongs up there somewhere. No, up over there. So behind the furthest forward subframe bar. And then there's another plastic clip here that clips some of this wiring loom here. And you want to get this pulled through, freed up, because you got to imagine this whole section is going to drop down, and you need these cables to stay with the car, so they're going to need to sneak up through here. And I have a feeling it's going to be kind of a hard process to get this thing down, so I want to make sure they can go up there and snake through as easily as possible. Next thing that we need to do is move outside the car and prep the suspension to come down. So you're going to want to take off this bolt right here that'll let the strut remove itself from the knuckle. And then also, it's a shame because we just did these brake lines, but we got to take the brake line off of the brake caliper. Brake cables are detached and the strut is undone from the knuckle, so this frees up everything to be able to kind of drop down when the subframe goes. Nothing inside the car will be holding it up. The next thing that we got to do is slide back underneath. Under here we got to take off the gear selection cabling. That's this stuff right here, so pop that pin out and that stuff's going to kind of come off. Got to get it out of that bracket there and then just clear its way for it to stay with the car. And then back here, it's pretty hard to see, but you can kind of see it. Well, you could see it right there with my shadows pointing at it. That's the e-brake cables, so those need to be loosened up at that point right there, I believe. And then I'm going to trace back and undo a few brackets there as well, although it should all kind of come down with the subframe, I believe, because they end right over here. So hopefully I won't run into too many problems, but a lot of people have told me that there's something on the top that is very, very hard to get at. But I think what's going to happen is once we start to lower this down, we're going to learn a little bit more. So I'm going to pop these couple things off and then we'll get to lowering it. Okay, parking brake cables were super easy. 2 12mm nuts, just pop that thing off. The thing that's really hard in here, and I called this a gear selector earlier. It's not a gear selector, it's actually just sends the car from neutral to park. The gears are selected electronically. Got that out of there, got it out of the bracket there. And then up on top of this thing, there's a bracket. It's extremely hard to access the bolts that hold the bracket on. It's super pointless to have there, but anyways, that took me about 30 minutes. I got that off. So now we're free. And it's time to go ahead and place a jack under here. I've read that right about here and then back there are the good points to place the jack, so that's what I'm gonna do. I got like a load beam, I don't know, cross support for my jack that we're going to test out. And then there are 6 bolts holding the subframe. There's one there, and there on each side. So we're going to go ahead and basically apply some pressure to this thing and then start to loosen it up and see how it wants to kind of come down. We got it out. The rear subframe and trans is out of the car. Came out without any issue. I had my friend Kyle here helping me, making sure that it was like stable as it came down, and it looks good. So it's down, it's on the jack still right now, and it's being held by the trans right now. So one thing to keep in mind is we need to remove the subframe, but the subframe is wrapped all around the transmission, and if this thing goes onto the ground or something like that, we have no way to lift this back up. We could maybe use the engine hoist. It's just going to be a total pain. So we have to figure out a way to get the transmission away from the subframe and the new subframe in there without losing our jack points, and I'll figure that out later. But for now, I'm just going to work on what I know I need to work on, which is all of the suspension components right here on both sides need to come off. So I'm going to pop the axle off because we're going to replace that on the other side, if you guys remember. All the control arms and everything that mounts up to this subframe on this side, I'm going to go ahead and pull off right now. All right, I got both the knuckles off of here, left some of the garbage suspension components on there because those are getting thrown out anyways with this subframe. So the next thing I'm gonna do is take off all the little plugs and things from the transmission so it'll be ready to be freed. Then we're gonna go ahead and get creative. Kyle and I are we're gonna like jack this thing up, hold the transmission on a couple jack stands, get it nice and high up in the air, and then try and unbolt the subframe from the transmission and wiggle the subframe off while not dropping the transmission on the ground. Fingers crossed. We got the subframe off. Old subframe is gone. We're gonna slide the new subframe back in. So the transmission right now is supported by the jack mainly, with a jack stand in the front and the rear in case it does any teeter-tottering. But the rear one's not really holding any weight. So what we're doing is we're basically making sure that the transmission is steady, sliding the rear one out. We slip the old subframe out, and then we're gonna go ahead and slip the new subframe back in. We're gonna bring it back up, bolt it up to the transmission, make it one more unit again, and get it ready to move into the car. Got the new subframe on without any issues at all, which is fantastic. We've got the cross brace on here now, so it's rebalanced. It's basically can be on the jack, solely on the jack without the jack stands once again. There were a little bit of signs of surface rust on this new one. Again, this is from a 2016, but it may have been kept outdoors or something, who cares? Little surface rust, no big deal, but I sprayed rust reformer over everything, so that will all turn to black and be good to go. So the next step that we're gonna do is lower this down off the jack stands, bring it back down, slide it underneath the car, and then slide all of these things over their mounting posts that look like that onto the car, and throw some bolts in there so it's being held up by the car once again. Oh my God, that took forever to get back in, but we finally got it in. It was a lot of just like lowering it down, you know, recalibrating where it was, lifting it back up, trying again, back and forth, back and forth. If I had any tips for anybody doing it on the ground, it would just be to make sure that you get the whole trans diff subframe unit level to where the car is, so all the posts are really wanting to go in. Have two people and just wiggle it back and forth as it works its way up the posts. And if you're gonna get one side seated first, make sure it's the driver's side, because the passenger side is ovaled out a little bit to accept a little bit of side-to-side play on that middle post, which is the tightest of the three posts on both sides. Anyways, you can see no more jack stand, and that's all back in. We've reinstalled a subframe. New subframe. So in an upcoming episode, I will install our new suspension components for the driver's side, the ones that were damaged in the accident, and our old suspension components over here, along with some new coilovers that we have for this ride, which will be really cool. You guys may have noticed this took 2 days. Day one, wearing this new beanie, got destroyed. We have new beanies in stock. They're made from a better, more high quality material that will last a little bit longer and keep its shape a little bit better. They are in black, and gray. If you're a shop rat like me, gray is probably not a good color to wear in the shop. That might be for, you know, wearing out. And then black will hide the grease. And they say B is for build right about here, like so. And if you like wearing your beanie kind of slouchy, it's just right here. If you're one of these flippity-uppity type of people, wow, that's a good look. You can flip it up and have it right here. Anyways, gray and black are now in the store, and if you want to get one of each color, there's a discount if you get both. If you need shop one and go into school one or whatever else it is that you do. So check those out now. If you want to support the build, that's a great way to do it, and our shop is at bsforbuild.com. Thank you guys all so much for watching. That is the hardest job that needs to be done on this car. Oh, and speaking of quarter panel, I got a company to save the day on the quarter panel, and I will explain it to you guys hopefully in the next episode, maybe the one after the next. It's awesome. All our problems are solved, and I'm very excited about it. Thank you guys all so much for the links to eBay UK, because anyways, that's really far away. Okay guys, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. Peace!